Jiro here for Umbra Games, bringing you a review of Wii U exclusive Xenoblade Chronicles X. I think I'll start by filling you in on a brief history of the Xeno series in case anyone's wondering. There was a game many years ago on PlayStation called Xenogears, published by Squaresoft, aka Square Enix, in 1998. The game was a turn-based RPG and overall fairly epic in scale, being 2 discs with a final confrontation, spoiler alert, where you kill God. While it never received a direct sequel, a majority of the developers that worked on Xenogears created a company called Monolith Soft and were financed by Namco Bandai. It's here they developed 3 more Xeno games for PlayStation 2, all within a new series called Xeno's Saga. Each game, or as they called them, episodes, had a German name from German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche's writings, including Übermensch, which deals with what to do after the death of God. And these titles include The Will for Power, Beyond Good and Evil, and Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Now, I'm not going to try the German on that. In 2007, Monolith Soft was purchased by Nintendo and became a first-party developer, where they worked on a few games, including 2010's Xenoblade Chronicles for Wii. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles was not going to be released here in the West, but an online petition known as Operation Rainfall got enough signatures to make it happen, where it was released as a GameStop exclusive and sold decently well. Spoiler alert, but once again in Xenoblade Chronicles, deities are struck down, and Xenoblade Chronicles ends with your characters discovering the planet Earth and basically becoming an origin story for the Earth-based humanity. Now, 2015, here in the US, we get Xenoblade Chronicles X, where humanity's time on Earth has ended and the planet is destroyed by a race later named the Prone, and its citizens are forced to flee in spaceships. We follow the ship, known as the White Whale, as it crash lands on a planet named Mira, and you as the player help humanity to rebuild a civilization on this alien world. Now, Mira is ridiculously huge. The height of the landscape structures, the draw distance, the fact that you can go pretty much everywhere is breathtaking. It's almost impossible to believe Monolith Soft was able to get this kind of performance out of a Wii U. It basically seems like Nintendo let them hack the system. I mean, it helps that you can go to the Wii U eShop and download the free 10 gigabytes worth of patches to make your Wii U run better for this game. Just be ready for the 2+ hour install download time, even with my 1 gigabit internet connection. Now, the planet is divided into 5 very different feeling continents, and there's also the remnants of the White Whale christened as New LA. I can't give any good shots of the Wii U gamepad, but it provides a handy hexagonal map of each area. Each hexagon contains at least 1 activity, including treasure, a normal or affinity quest, or special monsters deemed tyrants, which are named more difficult versions of their brethren. Your completion percentage is marked in each district of the city and continent by how many of these hexes you complete, and thus are awarded the star for it on the map. Some of the continental hexes are data probe locations where once planted you see all the activity in all the hexes around it, and this also will enable fast travel, which can be initiated with the push on the touchscreen on the Wii U gamepad. Special probes can be placed on those particular hexes that increase the mining of uranium, which is a resource used for quests, upgrades, and fuel, or produce research revenue for purchasing things in shops. Monolith Soft did a great job with their world presentation and provided a great fantasy of truly exploring an alien world, including its flora and fauna that can be gathered for your collection. Each enemy, when targeted, displays their character level to help you judge if you can survive in combat. Instead of the enemy levels being striated like most games, they're intermingled in each zone. I mean, do you ever realize how the enemies in RPGs get stronger the further you are away from home, and how kind of unrealistic this is? Instead, like a true habitat, there are a range of increasingly hostile dangers that keep you on your toes and force you to sneak around sometimes. X plays a lot like its Wii predecessor did, similar to a lot of the MMOs where you have an open area with enemies, some that are aggressive or using the slang term aggro, based on sight or sound. When you engage an enemy, you begin real-time combat where you auto-attack and use various abilities that are on cooldowns. For example, every 12 seconds it can be used. One key factor in combat is positioning, which makes all the difference as some attacks grant bonuses based on front, side, or back attacking. There are multiple classes and advanced classes in X that each have their own skills, arts, and exclusive weapon types, and your main character can switch to any class at any time. You can have up to 3 other members in your party that are rooted to a specific class, and unlike Xenoblade Chronicles, while in combat, X does not let you take control of these party members. You can set their abilities, advance and equip them as you wish, but not control. Which brings me to my first point, and how dreadful most AI is in party games of this type, Xenoblade Chronicles X included. For example, there's a class that party member Yelv is a part of that uses giant laser cannons. There's a move where they shoot the area in front of them for what feels like a mile, and consequently can aggro everything in the area. There's also a concept called soul voice in combat, where a character will use a move and yell something out that will be displayed in a color. Your arts have the matching color, and you have a limited amount of time to activate this art, which gives you and the Yeller some HP, as well as builds the affinity between you. These have some limited customization options, but really function as the primary way to heal in combat, so it's necessary to listen and have a variety of art colors on your bar at all times. Now, I know it's typical of the subgenre of RPGs, but the fact that it feels like you should be able to dodge can be really frustrating. If you're running from an enemy and are clearly a mile out of their talon swing, you still take damage. You will remain engaged in combat through cave and building walls, even though you can't see your target and they can't see you. Midway through the game, you become able to purchase a skell, the nickname Blade uses for giant robots that serve as an exoskeleton. You can customize colors and assign them to party members. They can transform into a vehicle for quick travel across land, and eventually, spoiler alert, a module is developed where they all can fly. Instead of classes and arts on the skells, you purchase weapons that match the corresponding colors so that you can still perform soul voices, which remain your source of healing. Honestly, didn't care much for the skell combat. Positioning your mech, specifically while flying, is disorienting at times, and something sometimes triggers a cockpit view that you can't get out of immediately, meaning you can't really move. It's also kind of difficult to tell the ability and usefulness of weapons, and they're really expensive to just be fumbling around with trial and error. Equipment customization in general, though, ended up being pretty confusing and overwhelming. There are certain things on each different weapon that can be easily upgraded if you have a specific material, but you can also create augments if you unlock a recipe for it, I think is how it worked, by completing normal missions. My final point on combat is I hate the way you select targets. It does its best to select the target in front of you when you press the R button, but then you have to hold R and hit Y to cycle targets to the left and A to cycle targets to the right, but I never quite understood because it didn't feel positionally left from my view, nor did it consistently seem it was relational to the way the mech was facing. And on top of that, if you were in your skell and hit Y, but let your finger slip off R, although I still swear sometimes with holding R, it hits the button to exit your skell. You also have some irritations with texture and enemy pop-in when you're trying to scout out an area, and something will pop up when it's too close to aggro range. This also gets you when you're looking for NPCs to finish quests. Your character provides assistance to New Los Angeles by joining the military group known as Blade. There are several divisions of Blade that you can choose from at any time, each granting different amounts of Blade experience based on the activity completed, like killing monsters or exploring or setting up new data probes. Being a member of Blade also gets you access to the mission board, where you can take up to 20 basic missions at a time. There are also normal missions given to you by residents of New LA. Sometimes the mission board will direct you to these individuals to get your normal quest. There are also affinity missions that you can only accept once you've reached a specific character level and have the correct affinity level with the party member that the mission requires. Finally, there are 12 chapters with a multi-part main mission each. The main missions can have prerequisites of character levels, affinity mission completion, and exploration, and also have party member requirements. I think some of the most interesting content lies in getting to know your allies through these affinity missions, but unfortunately these are also the most annoying to access. First, there's something like a dozen potential party members in Xenoblade, which is awesome. The problem lies in switching members. Each character has a place they like to hang out in New LA, and if you want them back in your party, you have to go find them. There are also heart-to-heart cutscenes, one for each of the 5 affinity levels per character. For these scenes, the character will be somewhere in New LA at a certain time period, or sometimes all day, thus they won't be in their normal spot where the map says they should be. In the previous Xenoblade game, you would trigger the heart-to-heart with that character in your party at a certain location, and it really helped with some of this new confusion. It's also annoying to try to check affinity levels, as you have to go to the affinity chart, and as the game progresses, so many people are on it, so you have to scroll around and find that member and click the A button to check it. The primary, possibly sole method of increasing affinity is through the aforementioned soul voice usage during combat. If a character dies, they lose a significant amount. So you have to take underleveled characters into combat, use them effectively, and ensure above all else they don't use some giant laser beam and aggro the level 80 creatures in the area every time. I guess this could give some call for replay value, but finishing these affinity missions is what works towards 100% completion on the map, so you're trying to get them all in one playthrough. I understand the concept and the story setup to make this happen, like Yelvigan for instance. He's looking for someone he believes to be alive since the crash. He's not an open person, and by doing the heart-to-hearts and building up that friendship, he reveals more and more to you. It's very effective storytelling. Just really annoying. Collecting items for the basic and normal missions is frustrating as well. I mean, not knowing where that item could be, the blue crystal resources are random on what you get, and finding the particular enemy that drops what you need isn't shown to you all the time. Nor does the bestiary list where the creatures are, even if you've encountered it before. This world is just too big not to have a catalog or a pointer for things like that. Let's talk about multiplayer for a second. So there's a couple things here. First, when you play the game and you're hooked up online, you will join a squad of up to 32 players. There will be squad missions most of the time, which is essentially multiple tasks to kill X amount of Y monsters. If you contribute, you get reward tickets to buy rare materials. A virtual version of yourself will be available to your squad as a scout blade, and if you're used, you can get various rewards as well. Secondly, there's some kind of multiplayer squad missions you can apparently take once an aforementioned squad task has been completed, but I think I must have checked the wrong console at the wrong times. Something, because I never had a mission available. Which kind of leads into my next point. When is the last time you read an instruction manual for a game other than grabbing something to read on the way to the bathroom? I honestly couldn't tell you when I did. Tutorials are so shoved down our throats in modern gaming that frankly I often find myself annoyed by it. But I was trying to figure out how the data probe system works, so I went online to try to find an answer and found an article where a guy stressed his point number 1, read the online manual. So I did. It's 50 or so pages and contains the answers to pretty much all questions. I've had friends pick up and play this game and ask me questions about something, and well, of course I'd answer it, but I'd also direct them to do the same thing. Hopefully that gives you a small idea on the complexities of this massive game. Xenoblade Chronicles X is very Japanese. For example, be prepared to do some grinding. I set out focusing mainly on missions when working towards a main quest level requirement. After hours and hours, I finally just went out and killed small enemies in my skells that were 10 levels above me, and I started getting 3 to 8 times more experience in one kill than in finishing a quest. Now, this doesn't mean skip missions entirely, as normal missions will unlock game features, but it was pretty frustrating. With my 75-hour experience, I grinded enemies for about 2 hours, and went from level 41 to 52, with 60 being the cap. Another Japanesey feature of this game is the annoying alien race that talks like a baby in an annoying voice. I guess this is just the kind of thing that's present in a lot of anime, but man, Tatsu is just plain annoying. I'm gonna guess 25% of the dialogue amongst party members in the game is about cooking and eating them too, and is a source of about 50% of the game's jokes. Also, as mentioned, the level cap is 60, and I found some extremely overpowered beasts like a level 99 giant enemy by accident. So get ready for some post-game gear grinding if you're wanting to take those beasts down. Oh yeah, and we can't forget about the J-pop. Or the scantily clad 13-year-olds. Yeah, she's 13. Overall, the main story doesn't disappoint. It provides a couple of twists intermingled with some predictable situations. But like all epic RPGs where there's a ton of side content, it's easy to get off that track and remember what's going on. There are some fairly deep philosophical situations, and while you do get binary input in conversations, I have a feeling it doesn't really change anything but a few words. The dialogue is pretty well written overall though, and there is some wonderful voice talent behind it. So wow, this got long. If you're looking for a hardcore JRPG to help with the lack thereof in recent generations, or if you were looking for an excuse to get a Wii U, Xenoblade Chronicles X could help you out there. I finished the main story of the game at 75 hours and 26 minutes at level 53, and only had 39% of the world completed, and you're free to continue on after finishing. To be honest though, I was ready to be done around 50 hours or so, just out of sheer content repetition. This game fits into my real-time RPG genre, and rated as such gets a 78 out of 100. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching.